Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, with my cousin and co-host,
Gab.
And we've also got a couple of guests here. Our first guest, who you may have heard mentioned on the podcast, Giselle.
Oh, hi.
I didn't point. That threw it off. I didn't point to you to talk. I'm sorry.
Honestly.
I didn't know. Hello.
Yes. So Giselle is on the podcast because she picked a movie to watch before you die, and she has brought a fellow guest and VTuber Z with her.
Hi. Thank you for the pointing this time.
Thank you. Yes. You know what? We're not used to doing it with this many people. We gotta get it right, you know?
Oh, that's true. This is I guess we did an episode with Giselle and Corey where it was four of us, but this is like, we were each in the same room at that time. So it was only 2 Zooms. Now we've got 4 people. This is great.
Yes, this is much more complex though.
Yeah, we've got double the people on this podcast than listeners.
Yes, we have fully outnumbered Pedro and Scotty.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we'll skip the whole, spiel about why you're listening to Gab and I, and we'll get straight into things. Giselle, do you want to tell us why you picked the 2016 film Your Name?
Okay. So for me, I very recently have started to get into anime, and I think a good amount of that is because of my relationship with Z and the wonderful recommendations that she offered. And so I think in passing, she was like, you guys should watch Your Name, in like the sweetest voice ever. And so if Dylan asks me to watch a movie, I will not do it. I don't like to be pushed.
She calls me like I'm a drug pusher. She's like, no, yes. I won't watch it.
Yes, I just don't want to do it. But if somebody else asks me to watch a movie, it's definitely going to happen. I will do it immediately. And so I remember we threw it on and I wasn't thinking too much of it. And I thought, oh, I don't really know how I feel about this. And then maybe about 40 minutes into the movie, I just thought, oh my God, this is incredible. And then I sobbed on and off a solid amount watching. And near the end, I think Dylan and I just looked at each other and we both had tears in our eyes. And I was like, oh, I love you so much. And I think if you can make me feel the ooey gooiness of love, you have me.
Okay.
I would agree with that fully.
What? The ooey gooiness?
Yeah, if it's ooey gooey, I'm sold. I'm in. If I'm watching and I feel so emotional and I'm crying, like that's all it takes for me.
Yes.
I'm sold. I'm in.
I guess I agree, but it's also really hard for me to get there, I think. As you well know with some of the movies that you have picked.
He has no emotions. He has no heart.
I don't get ooey gooey very easily.
He's like, yeah, but look at the whip pan they used here, and that dolly shot was good. Did you notice the lighting?
I say,
actually, let me tell you about this editing here. This was a cut. If you didn't realize, it looks like it's one shot, but it's not. Sorry.
Yep. Hard to get ooey gooey that way, Dill.
Thanks,
he looks so offended.
I feel the offense, but thank you. So what we're going to do is, Giselle, since you picked the movie, I'm going to ask you what it's about, but be ready, Z, because I'm probably going to have you expand on that once we get into like spoilers. Okay. So, Giselle, in the spoiler-free version, what is Your Name about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I bet you're bottom. I bloody well ought to.
Okay, guys, I worked on this really, really hard, so I hope this is concise. 2 teenagers share a profound magical connection upon discovering they are swapping bodies. Things manage to become even more complicated when the boy and the girl decide to meet in person.
Should I read the
IMDb
IMDb plot summary?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's gonna suck in comparison.
You might think so. 2 teenagers share a profound magical connection upon discovering they are swapping bodies. Things manage to become even more complicated when the boy and girl decide to meet in person.
Oh my God, I love you so much.
I have that's the hardest part when I listen to the podcast and you guys go, so Gab, tell me what this movie's about. Dylan, tell me what this movie's about. And I just can't imagine the stress that you're under to give a concise synopsis. So just
I will say
Shia LaBeouf style, put it back where my head should. I am not famous.
Well, great. Now Shia's not going to come on next week. He was all lined up. Now you've insulted him.
We've offended.
I will say, I think, Gab, you are so much better at that on a week-to-week basis at the what's it about. Whereas I'm like,
thank you.
I don't know, some shit happens and like we get to the end eventually.
Yeah. I've just gotten really good at being like, at really thinking, how would I describe this movie to somebody if I didn't want them to know what happened? And Dylan is like, well, in the beginning, da, 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 and then in the middle, da, 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 and it's like, no.
Yeah, it's too much. So
I was listening to your Hercules review opener, and I was like, that's an interesting way of putting it.
it's terrible. I know. Okay.
Z, quickly, do you think Hercules is a movie to watch before you die? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Whatever.
Okay, let's move on.
Way to suck up to one of the co-hosts. Let's hear the tagline for your name. It's a very weak tagline. Experience Japan's #1 film of 2016 from visionary director Makoto Shinkai.
Jesus Christ. All right, forget it. I hate taglines.
It's like the lowest effort. Besides, I've noticed what they do for kids' films. Every kids' movie seems to have a tagline that just says like, theaters can't even hold it. And it's like, are kids looking at posters and they're like, oh man, I got to see this one. The theater can't hold it.
It's so big.
I'm 99% sure they did that for Hercules, for Recess, for every kids' movie we've done.
Yeah. All right,
Giselle,
weak
you look
tagline,
confused.
but that's okay.
I always look confused. I'm just rebooting. I think I was trying to think of taglines that I remembered as a kid. I don't know that I know any, but I feel like the poster for Pokemon and the poster for what was the movie? Rugrats really got me. Isn't it like It's Tough to Be a Baby?
That might
Is
be a
it
tagline.
It could be.
It is. It's tough to be a baby.
Yeah.
It could not be easier to be a baby. It's tough to be a parent.
Yeah.
It's easy to be a baby. You just roll around and shit yourself.
You clearly did
You
not
can do
watch
that as an
enough
adult,
Rugrats.
though.
Yeah,
I do that as
I
an
can do
adult.
that right
Giselle
now
gets
if I
really
want
upset
to.
about it. I'm like, Giselle, come change me. And she's like, oh, great. Again.
I'm just a little baby. No, you're not a baby.
I don't have any money. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I would say, if you have not seen this movie, do not keep listening. Definitely avoid spoilers, because I think when we first saw this, after having it recommended to us by Z, we had pretty much no knowledge going in of what it was really about. And I think that is probably the best way to watch it, because you just experience things as they change. Even having rewatched it for the second time for the podcast episode, it's a very different experience knowing where things end. So this is your spoiler alert. This is, after this point, you will hear things that you cannot unhear. And Z, if you are ready, I'm going to pass it over to you to give us a little bit more in depth, if you want to put some spoilers in there about what your name about. Grammar good.
Well, I was going to say, on the note of rewatching it too, I find it's very rewatchable. I watched it 4 times now. First time I saw it in theaters, which, oh my God, is an experience, because it's just beautiful. Everything about the movie is beautiful. Not a spoiler, just in general. The artwork. But like last time I was watching it, noticed like the music to it was really good too. Like, you don't really there's so much going on with spoiler, like how the comet issue, they're jumping around and you're trying to keep track of who's in who, where's the timelines. Like the first time, I feel like it can be a little hard to pay attention to, like, the little details of it, the ribbon on his wrist and things like that. You start to notice that. So those are, rewatching it, it's definitely so rewatchable too, just saying. But as far as what it's about, it's like Freaky Friday-esque, where they're in each other's bodies, and you don't realize until much later that they are not also in each other's bodies, but they're in different timelines, where he's in 2016, she's in 2013, and they never really like check the dates for some reason. I guess that's not big in Japan, whatever. But they are in each other's bodies in different timelines, and he realizes that she dies, and it's basically about his love for her and her love for him and trying to save her, I guess. Would that be fair?
I think that would be fair. I think is that a safe spot to end what's it about, and so we can get into our opinion time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it is now officially opinion time.
In this critic's opinion,
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
What I would say is, I think that while Giselle and I were watching it, she came up with something that was a really cool way of explaining this movie, especially based on something that Gab and I had watched recently. She said it was Freaky Friday mixed with Sleepless in Seattle. And I totally feel that. Like if you add in like a twinge of like Back to the Future or Source Code as well, one of those movies about like time hopping, it's totally there. Um and I feel like I like this so much more than Sleepless in Seattle because it does make me feel like the characters know each other in a sense, whereas in Sleepless in Seattle, Meg Ryan is just a creeper, it feels like.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't get a bit of a creeper vibe from Meg Ryan when she's just staring
Listen,
at.
I don't want to talk about Sleepless in Seattle
We're not
with you
relitigating
anymore.
Sleepless in Seattle. Okay.
Jesus.
I've never seen it. I have no opinion.
Oh, you love it.
It's fine. Watch You've Got Mail. That's better.
It's like I want to be angry, but I'm also taking that as a win. Yeah. I said to you at one point, I said, is this like anime Inception? Because I was starting to understand like you're over here and he's over there and you know the timeline and whatnot. So I would definitely agree with that. I also said Freaky Friday, I believe, in my text to you.
Yes. Speaking of your text to me, what was it that you first said?
Oh boy, he's got receipts.
I cannot believe you're making me watch this. And I'm guessing you must have been in like the first 2 minutes. And I went, how far in are you? The guy just cupped his balls. I'm like, okay, so maybe you're 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it was early. Well,
I know it's early because you immediately texted me after. Oh, so they switched bodies.
It was like a live tweet. So I typically take notes on these movies, and the only note that I have one. I don't know if you can see it. I have one very short note, and it's a quote from Corey, who watched this with me. And the quote is, "Why do they have to whisper?" And then when the music comes on, dun 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 dun. Because we raised the volume up so high because they were whispering to each other in the beginning. And then this song comes in and it's so loud. I thought we were going to blow out the speakers on the television.
When those opening like credits come on, the music is blaring a little bit.
Oh,
I will feel like,
God.
And maybe you've noticed even more, Z, that having rewatched it, those opening credits sort of show a lot about the movie.
Yeah, it's one of those, don't skip the opening credits. I know a lot of people that watch TV and, you know, you kind of just don't pay much mind to it. You have to remember it is a movie and the opening credits are important. It's part of it. It shows a lot of little spoilers.
Yeah, I feel like in ways you could skip it, but it's one of those things that having already seen it, I was like, oh, I know where this leads. I know where that leads. Oh, okay, that's them getting older. Yada, yada.
I will say, we watched My Hero Academia with Z one day where the three of us were hanging out. And you said, and I remember you said, don't skip the intro. You have to watch the theme. You have to see the credits, the opening credits, and it gives so much backstory. And the only show that I can think of on, I guess that's live action, is Succession, where the credits are so important to the season. And they're on the 4th season now. And in the 4 seasons, the credits have changed slightly depending on the season that they're at and what characters are going to have what stories. And so it's just very interesting that, as you said, we often don't pay attention to the intro and it could actually hold such, I don't know, nuggets of information. But
it also feels like the intro is like a dying art form. So many shows now just like throw up a title screen and they're like, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like we watch Barry, and Gab, you watch Barry, I know. Barry is like a 2-second intro. It just says Barry on screen, and that's it.
And then that's it.
I miss the little jazzy openings. Now it's just serious and tense.
Yeah. So okay, so we've discussed a little bit of the intro credits being very important, albeit with music that is so loud and no one is prepared. It was like shit your pants loud. So once I was able to find a manageable volume, and mind you, the music does come back again later, where again it blares, and you have to rush to change the volume on the television. Which, by the way, I think in a fair world, Hulu, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime, HBO Max would all just have similar levels of volume, because God forbid you're watching Hulu before you watch a movie on Amazon Prime. You're done. It's over.
I was gonna say I watched it on Crunchyroll and it wasn't that big of a jump. So it could definitely be part of the platform too, where you're watching it. I don't know where you watched it.
I rented it on Amazon. Did you guys feel like it went from really quiet to really loud?
I feel like it did, only because I feel like what Giselle and I do while we're watching a movie is I have the remote for the volume and Giselle goes, wait, raise it. I can't hear them. Wait, lower it. The music's too loud. Wait, raise it again. I can't hear enough right now. Wait, lower.
Yes.
So basically it's always too loud because Giselle she uses me like an equalizer, like for the sound. I'm just constantly like trying to bring her back to the right volume that she needs.
Yep,
so yeah, it was
way.
a little loud at times, but never oppressively so.
Wait,
I think.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think that when the dialogue first begins, they are whispering. So I don't like to listen to things. I like things to be blared in my face so I can't miss them. I don't want to be active. So I grabbed the remote and I was like, nope. And I turned it up, 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 up. And then finally, boom, I scared the shit out of myself, but they were whispering.
I want to know, did the baby next door start crying?
I think the baby may have started crying, but the goddamn TV was so loud, I couldn't even hear the baby if the baby was screaming and yelling.
I'm taking that as a personal attack to that baby. I have a personal vendetta against that child.
The music was loud, but I was like, wait, don't lower it yet. Fuck this baby and fuck this baby's parents. For sure. So while we're talking about volume, no, we're going to save that for later. Why don't you guys keep going? Because I feel like we've gotten very stuck on the opening credits. And I want to talk a little bit more about the movie itself.
I would say about the movie more specifically that I do feel like it requires a little bit of patience. Because I think the first half of the movie does not feel as interesting initially. Like when you're just watching the body swap aspect of it, you're like, okay, this isn't bad, but I'm not like blown away by this, because again, I remember when it was recommended to us, it was like, this movie is great. And once you realize, I guess what I would call the twist of them not just being body swapped, but out of time with each other. And then you get what feels like, what's interesting is we were talking about the ooey gooeys, which I like now as our term for romance, the ooey gooeys. Mm-hmm. And I think I enjoy the romance of this movie because it's like a Tootsie Pop. It's coated in different layers of things. Or to go back to our Shrek thing, it's like an onion. Or like a parfait. So it has many layers. And I feel like what is good about it is, first you have the body swapping, and you, in addition to that, have the time. And in addition to that, you then have what becomes an very action-oriented of the need to save somebody. So it's not a climax of like, will they, won't they, or anything like that. It's a climax of, are these 500 people going to die or not? And I think that makes it much more interesting. I don't know. Maybe that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But maybe I just love the movie too much. I was going to say, I think the beginning part where they are swapping is so interesting because it gives you such a dynamic of their characters. And I feel like it shows you how much they change as well. Like she's very passive almost, like when her father calls out to her, she's like all embarrassed and stuff, and by the end she's like putting her foot down, screaming at him, not as Taki like the second time, like she's yelling at him, and he becomes more like passive and loving. When we first see him, he has a bandage on his cheek because he got in a fight, and you can see like even on his date in Tokyo with I'm totally blanking on her name, with that woman,
Miss Okudera.
Yeah, on the date with her, like you can see he's like more calm, like relaxed, like you can see how they're influencing each other. And I feel like a lot of that comes in the body swap section. Like you can see how they're affecting it.
Yes, I'm not saying oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm always nervous about clarifying for anybody who said, you know what, I'm not going to watch the movie, but I want to listen to the episode. So we have these two teenagers. They find that they're swapping bodies with one another. And in this case, what's happening is they're behaving as themselves, but in the other person's body to sort of do them a favor. So you have the girl whose name is
Mitsuha.
Thank you. She is in Taki, the boy's body, and she's setting him up on a date with somebody that he may not have had the courage to talk to. And he is making her more, I guess, courageous is probably not the word I want to use, but like more assertive. In circumstances where she would usually be a little bit more mild. So that's kind of the discussion about them switching bodies. And then as we come to learn that they're living in different timelines, we realize that they are not really going to be able to meet one another because obviously like they're 3 years apart.
And one of them's dead.
So so this is where I have to just confess, like, I don't get it.
Oh,
sorry.
No.
And not that I don't get it. Here's the thing. I get what happened. I don't get where everyone is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Because I was like, okay, so they're just here's oh God, we're in opinion time. So I don't want to listen. I don't want to get kicked out of my family. Okay. I don't understand where they fell in love. Like, I can understand where they helped each other. I can understand where they're bummed that they can't meet. I can understand where he wants to help save her life. But I don't understand where the love came from. Because as far as I'm concerned, she was helping him date this other girl. When did they fall in love? I missed this.
You forget that they wrote a lot of diary entries to each other. So they had notes upon pages of notes of them just talking back and forth about what's going on, them interacting. That's where part of that beginning part comes, like where he's like, they're yelling at each other through the notes. They're talking to each other through the notes. Like, I think that their written communication is what did it. I don't know, Dylan, Giselle.
I was going to say, actually wrote down why I really liked this version of a love story, because I think a lot of times in a relationship, what makes a really healthy relationship is being able to see things from somebody else's perspective. So from your partner's perspective. And I think there's no other way of doing that better than like being in someone else's body and walking in someone else's shoes. And so I think there's a level of intimacy in being in someone else's body and being with their friends and their family and writing these entries and getting to know their day-to-day on such an intimate level, that I really felt that when they had that moment during magic hour and they were able to connect, I really was like, I believe that this is love, because I just can't imagine it being more intimate than sharing your body with somebody else, but you're not in your body. Like, you're in someone else's body and they're in your body. And like, it just, to me, I was like, this is amazing. And I wish I'd seen more of that, because I think, to me, I was just like, this is such a wonderful thing. It's exactly what Z said. He was able to draw some courage out of her, and she was able to ground him in a way that allowed him to be more loving. And the journal, it was such a, I don't know, the love story for me felt very real.
I also feel like, going off what you're saying, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, that the movie really effectively uses montages to make those diary entries and those writings feel like a conversation, because it'll have them be saying it at the same time, like voicing what's happening at the same time, and you feel like it does feel more like they are talking to each other rather than in the more plainer version of like, well, he wrote this, then she wrote that. And not only that, there is this intimacy of you know, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. So they're getting to know each other's families, which in turn is, you know, them figuring out who this person is, because they have to pretend to be this person. So they really are getting to know the person well as they learn to be them, because otherwise, you know, they're realizing at first when the body swapping is first happening, they just each sort of think they're dreaming, and they're just sort of like, well, I'll do whatever I want, I guess. You know what I mean? That's why they're like, wait, what did I do yesterday, with their friends? Which I do also really like. It's, you know, it's not important, but I always enjoy that these are very supportive friends, I feel like, because there are multiple times where the friends are just like, all right, we're going to meet some girl whose name you don't know several hours away, and we're going to spend the entire day doing, okay, sure. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they're for real. Keep them.
And Gab, I know you brought up that like she's trying to set him up with this other girl, but even on that date that she sets him up for, I remember Miss Okudera, she says to him, you know, I know you used to have a crush on me, but I feel like that's not there anymore. And I think that's because already at that point is him sort of falling in love with the person that he knows Mitsuha to be, instead of, you know, Miss Okudera, who's right there.
See, and I thought, does she not feel like he likes her because Mitsuha is in his body, and so she's like this. It used to feel different, and now I feel like I'm talking to somebody else. Because at one point she does say, "I feel like I'm with a different person," and I'm like, "You are with a different person," but maybe not.
To
No, I
expand
think both of
on
those
that,
things are true.
to expand on that too, I'm not sure exactly. Like, I know there's the red string of, fate and like that, but I think it's kind of implied they are also like two halves of the same soul, like literal soulmates. Like when he drinks the sake in the tree towards the end, he doesn't say this is Mitsuha's. Like he said, this one's mine. Like he says, oh, this one's the sister's name. I forget her name. I'm sorry.
I
And
don't
he's like,
remember
and
her
this
name either.
one's mine. Like he didn't say, oh, this is Mitsuha's, this is mine. He says, like, I'm like, this one's mine. So I don't know if like they're literally like soulmates, like, and that could be also what made them fall so fast and easily.
Yeah, that would make sense for sure. And see, those are times when like he said, "This is mine," and I'm confused because I'm like, "Oh, so she's in his body."
I did find out, I have to do my deep dives for these things afterwards to come up with facts and such. And one of the things I read that was really interesting is the time, one way you can tell is if Mitsuha has the ribbon in her hair, it's actually Mitsuha because Taki doesn't know how to tie it. Which I just really like the explanation of like he's too stupid. But like and it's the same for Taki. He has the ribbon wrapped around his wrist when it's actually him.
We watched the same video. Your deep dive, I was just watching it while you guys were recording the mail segment. And so you were saying, I thought, this sounds oddly familiar.
Don't out me that my deep dives are just watching other YouTube videos, Giselle. Come on.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't claim to be like an expert at analyzing films because I've made some really dumb mistakes in past episodes, like not knowing RoboCop was a satire. But I do think that this film in particular, it has so much going on, and it doesn't like, it kind of takes for granted maybe that you are following, and so I'm like, oh, they're switching bodies. Oh, anytime, like, maybe it's just that American films are like a little bit less, like, they're a little bit more obvious. I don't know. I just like felt so lost. And then all of a sudden it was about them meeting, but then it was about him saving her. And I'm like, okay, well, if she's 3 years in the past and then all of a sudden they're meeting and they're talking at golden hour, but I'm like, is this just suspension of disbelief that like they found this magic time that they can talk to each other, or somehow like, are they writing this to each other and I'm just seeing them reading? Like, I was just so lost. I just felt like there were so many things happening and changing that like, I was like, what?
Oh, Gab, you stupid dumb idiot. No,
I know.
I think it definitely helps that the rest of us have seen this movie multiple times, and I think we're probably taking that for granted. Because they do explain at the beginning, magic hour or golden hour or dusk light or whatever they call it is the time where the worlds are most closely together. That it's these things that I'm sure an hour later you're not thinking about it, and then at that point you're just like, but how are they together? You just explained to me that they're out of time with each other.
Well, I remember that scene where in the school where they were talking about Twilight, magic hour, whatever, but it almost to me felt like so heavy-handed, where it was like, oh yeah, we get it. Okay, it's magic hour. Like magic things happen. But I didn't feel like there was a good explanation. I just felt like, okay, so now something magical is happening because they told me that it's magic hour, and like legend says you can see whatever. You know what I mean? Like it felt more heavy-handed than it did clear.
I do think it is because also that they are linked. And it's because, he goes in there, and I remember that the grandmother explains that, when you enter the sacred shrine type area, that it is the netherworld, and
that confused me too.
What do you mean?
All of a sudden now we're talking about this shrine and saving the shrine and who's in the shrine and who's not in the shrine. I'm just like, what is the plot line here?
Well, they talk about the shrine, and the shrine, they even explain at one point, I think, is from where the comet landed the last time it came 1,200 years before. So it makes sense that it sort of looks like a mountain, but it's really a crater from the last impact. Yeah. So I remember they explained that it is the netherworld, and that in order to go in there and enter what is a magical place during magic hour. You have to give up the thing that means the most to you, which I remember they explained that when Mitsuha and her sister are going in there with the grandma and they're giving up the sake as like their, sacrifice, that part of their souls. And Taki doesn't realize that when he is in there, what he ends up giving up is he gives the ribbon back to Mitsuha, and then he immediately, starts to lose the memories of her once the magic hour is over. Which I will say, that is the scene that gets me the hardest, that match cut from let's write our names on each other's hands to she makes the first mark, and then it match cuts to magic hour is over, the marker just drops, and I'm like, no!
Match cut. You hear him dropping official names over here. So romantic. Match
I'm getting
cut.
ooey gooey, guys.
And they drop the ooey gooeys.
See, and I didn't understand that there was anything given up. I was just like, of course, now he doesn't remember her because I don't know. He just doesn't now. They were both forgetting each other. Like those things were confusing to me. And I'm completely okay with everybody in this podcast episode telling me that I'm ignorant, but I genuinely feel like so much is happening that I looked at Corey at one point and I said, should we have the captions on? Like, because I feel confused, but it was in perfect English. And I was just like, I mean, I've watched movies before without the captions and understood what's going on. It just felt like so much was happening. And I don't want to take anything away from the movie for me not understanding it and being too dumb to understand. But it really did feel like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Did Corey feel the same way?
Yes. And he loves My Hero Academia. He loves fucking Dragon Ball. I fall asleep to it all the time. It is a lot of yelling.
It's definitely very different from those kinds of animes, though, where it's like, this is not, your battle shonen type anime where every time, the hero will beat the villain, and then in 6 weeks they have to beat another villain who will make them train to a point of being stronger so that they can beat another villain where they have to get even stronger than that.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear,
Z,
trust me, I hear about it all the time.
Yeah, Z, you're definitely the anime expert of the four of us. Is there a lot of anime like Your Name? Is this a separate genre of anime?
Yeah, there are other animes and there are other anime movies that are, especially recently, because I feel like they realize that there is the demand for things that aren't shonen, like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, where there's tons of romance animes and things like that. And I feel like anybody that's getting into anime, their first thought is like, oh, this is going to be screaming, yelling, fighting, and I'm not interested. But there are so many animes that have like an in-depth relationships and make you feel things and make you cry. Like I bawled like 6 times during this movie last time. So don't be afraid of it just because it's an anime too, is kind of my thoughts.
Okay, so Z, I know you said that you bawled like 6 times during this movie. What moments are there in this movie that make you bawl? And I feel like Gab is going to say none, because either she didn't get it or she felt nothing during this. But
felt nothing. Cold, heartless bitch. Felt nothing. I did feel some things, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. So, Giselle, I feel like I saw you with tissues next to you. Z, what moments in this movie make you cry?
I'm a sap. I mean, I cried during the opening. I don't know what to add. Maybe that was just emotional for me, like remembering how much I love this movie. Definitely though, like when she dies, when he's freaking out, like when they meet at the end, oh my God, just waterworks in the epilogue. Those are the major moments. But yeah, I cried during the opening too. So,
and Gab, do you think that they're just amnesiacs? Like, do you not get why they're forgetting each other?
I understand it now that it's been explained to me. But I think that there is a level of, so first of all, I'm not going to claim that I went into this like really thinking I was going to like it. And I do find, and Corey pointed this out to me, and I'm kind of like on the fence about whether or not it's true, that I don't really care for animation. And I'm like, well, I love the classic Disney movies. Like I love Aladdin and The Lion King, and I love Hercules and whatever. And he's like, yeah, but you don't really love like cartoons, like as an adult, things you haven't seen or experienced. And I'm kind of like, well, I suppose maybe that's true. So that could be a mark against it from the beginning, that I kind of went in thinking like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to watch this. Because I didn't think I was going to like it.
She's been rather tough on every animated movie I've presented, and they're all bangers.
True.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm, banger. Emperor's New Groove, banger.
Exactly, though.
Fantastic.
Like, maybe I just don't like animated movies. I don't know. So there was that. Then, in addition, there was so much going on that kind of like you really needed to be, and I don't want to say I wasn't paying attention because I was paying attention, but there's so much going on that I just felt like kind of confused. And then additionally, let's also not forget that this is translated right from Japanese. So some of the dialogue is like a little off, like not really how people speak. So it was a little bit like, it just felt like a little out of place at times. And then, and this is the thing that I really took away from it the most, and I've started to notice it now, and it's been pointed out to me in other animes, is that they all make these like weird noises. All of the characters like do a lot of oh.
Well, there's a lot
over
expressiveness in anime, I'd say.
And it was very distracting. But ultimately, I think so. And then I spent the rest of the day going a lot. I feel like there were so many moments that if you didn't see it, or if you didn't catch it or make sense of it in the moment, you were set up for failure. And there were a lot of different storylines that all intersected, but were very different. And I just feel like I missed the train in Albuquerque somewhere, and I was just like, what is happening? Because I understood that they were forgetting each other. I understood that he had to save her. I understood that they were trying to meet, but all of those like undertones about why it couldn't happen or what was missing went right over my head. So I had a very surface level viewing of this movie, and it left me thinking like, what?
I think you definitely need a rewatch to line these things up, which I don't assume will happen, but I do feel like there's a lot in this movie. And it feels like there won't be at first, because at first you're just like, they're switching bodies and he's in her body touching his own boobs and okay, whatever. But I think once you get through the end of this movie, it becomes like, oh, I really need to pay attention, because there's a lot more importance than it seems that there will be in small details of the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't want to scare anybody that's like, well, I don't want to have to rewatch a movie 3 times to enjoy it. Like, I think regardless, if you just decide to watch it once, the animation alone is beautiful. It's worth a watch in that aspect. Like, you'll enjoy it regardless. I think you'll just enjoy it more if you watch it again.
I will also say, I know Gab mentioned that she didn't watch the movie with subtitles. And like, I'm not here for you knocking yourself. Every movie I watch is with subtitles. Any movie, because
like to have the subtitles on,
I feel that.
I can't, I need words on my screen in order for me to fully grasp what's going on. And that's with every movie, even if I've seen it a dozen times. But I can totally see how it can be a little complicated to follow the storylines. If it were just a movie that were animated about Freaky Friday and had that main storyline, that would, like Dianu, that would have been enough. If it were just a romance, again, that would have been enough. And I think for me, I enjoyed that there was more going on than maybe what I thought initially going into it. Was like, oh, well, I guess it's just going to be like a coming of age. And, like, I wasn't super thrilled, the whole like touching their boobs. And I was just like, okay, this is played out, like been here, rinse, wash, repeat. And then seeing that it was a love story, which I don't know if I would say it is a love story. Maybe it's a story about fate. And I feel like it could be that feeling of, I said to Dylan yesterday, have you ever met someone and said, I feel like I've known you in a different life? Like we connect on so many levels. And I think for me, this is what makes the movie so, I don't know, just up there for me and poignant, is because I love that feeling when you just connect with someone on such a deeper level than just the superficial. And you really feel like there's something going on here. Like, I really must have known you at some point, like that our paths intersect somehow. And I don't know that I'm a huge believer in past lives. I definitely believe in fate, but there are definitely moments where you really feel like you were meant to meet someone at this time.
Yeah.
And I think that movie really, I think that's what got me so in my feels is like everybody that's in my life right now, everybody that I love. It just this perfect way of just events unfolding that just led these people to be in my life. And how lucky is that? And how wonderful is that? And so I think for me, it just touched on something that I think I often feel in my day-to-day life of just, God, I'm so lucky to know this person and love this person and have this person love me in return. And just the whole threads and seeing that play out again and again with the red thread in her hair on his wrist, with the grandmother doing the threads. It just, I don't know. It really got me. I had my little Real Housewife like tissue. It's a inside thing, I guess, for people that listen and watch a shit ton of Housewives, but it's a little triangle. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Dylan is like, we have like 40 minutes. Why are you crying?
I totally feel that though. And it's funny because I so specifically like know exactly what you're talking about. I feel that way every day where I'm like, I'm so glad that every little tiny decision I made, even the horrible, terrible mistakes, every single one of them brought me to right where I am. And that is perfect. And if I had made any other decision, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't know you and blah, blah, blah. But like, I guess what we're learning on today's episode is that I'm just a moron because I really was just like, I don't get it. It all just happened very fast. And, but and here's the thing, like listening to you guys explain it, it's like, oh my God, I would probably love this. That sounds really great. But Jesus Christ, I was like, what's happening?
So do these things like click and make sense as they're being talked about though? And you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I would have felt better about that if I'd gotten that in the moment.
Yeah, probably. But I think ultimately, like we've already hit the nail on the head. Like the thought of watching it again to me is like, nah. Like I listen back to some of our episodes and I'm like, damn, I should watch RoboCop again. Or like, damn, I should watch whatever again. But this, I'm like, no. And I think I just don't like animated movies.
That breaks
That's
my
so
heart.
sad. Yeah.
I know, mine too. I want to like them. But even like Family Guy, The Simpsons, I'm like, no, turn it off.
Which also makes me feel like I'm like, well, I'm behind the 8 ball for any animated movie I ever pick going forward.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's a quote in this movie that sort of, very obviously sums up what the movie is about. And it's during they're wrapping the chords and the grandma's talking. She says, tying two strings is a union, connecting people is a union, time is a union. They break and unravel and reconnect. And like, that's obviously what the movie's about. But didn't you feel like
that was so heavy-handed? Weren't you just like, oh yeah, okay, we get it.
Well, it's heavy-handed because it's the same as when people are like, well, that's cliche. And I'm like, you know what? Cliches are cliches because they work. They make sense, goddammit. That's why we do the things. That's why it's a cliche, because sometimes the cliche makes sense. And it was heavy-handed, but I didn't think it was heavy-handed in a bad way.
I feel like the people Dylan is talking about is me. We literally just had this conversation 15 minutes ago.
I'm sick of people talking about cliches.
Dylan, cliches work.
I just felt like cliches do work, but I just felt like it was like there's such thing as a cliche, and then there's like, let me tell you what this is all about. And I just feel like it was like being explained to us, like, here's what the takeaway is. I used to train instructors for a company, and this is the only reason that I'm bringing this up is because I feel like it's the same thing. And I remember training this girl once who we got to the last song of the class and she went, okay, guys, here's your finale. And I was like, you don't have to tell them it's the finale. They should feel like this is the finale. Like, what are you talking about? And that's very much how it felt to me, was like, this is the lesson. It's like, well, couldn't you show me? Did you have to say it?
I suppose.
And I know it's kind of like toward the front half of the movie, so it's not necessarily like, in summary, blah, blah, blah. But it did feel like, okay, like, I get it. This is going to come back.
You know what movie I feel like really wants to convey the message this movie does and fails to do it?
Tell me.
I remember being the worst thing about the movie I'm about to talk about. Have you guys all seen Interstellar?
I had a panic attack during Interstellar.
Really?
Wait, why?
I have no idea. I don't remember. I just know that I was watching the movie and I started freaking the fuck out. Sober as hell. Freaking out.
Was it Matthew McConaughey?
Maybe. Probably.
She was not. All right. Okay. During Interstellar, there's a moment where Anne Hathaway, it feels like she's very much, like you're saying, heavy-handedly explaining the point of this very fact-based scientific film, which is to say, she goes, love is the only thing that is powerful enough to cross time and space. And it's like, movie, you have not emotionally set me up for this. You have been so scientific and logic based that you're like, but love can transcend all. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this movie, that is what this movie is about. The fact that love can find a way to transcend time, space, whatever it is. And I feel like it's totally coming out of nowhere, but it's just another scene I really want to mention is the day before Mitsuha is supposed to be killed by the comet. We find out that she goes to Tokyo, and talk about moments that make you bawl. It almost got me when I seen the movie for a second time. She is on a train in Tokyo now, and she manages to find Taki after, just going and trying to find, knowing what his routine is like. And she tries to say hello to him. And it's, because it's 3 years in the past, he does not know her yet. And I think he literally just says like, who are you? And it's just like, oh, you just feel that gut punch.
Yeah. This feels like something I would rewatch if I were having a really bad, like, mental breakdown. Like if I just like needed to, when you just want to be sad, you're like, I'm sad. How much sadder can I get? That's when I'll rewatch this.
But it's not sad by the end.
It's not sad. I feel like the cries I have during it are good cries. Like I'm not like, wow, this is depressing as hell.
Yeah, but I think sometimes those are like the ones that make you even more sad because you're like, not only am I sad, but now I'm like, even these cartoons are having a better time than me,
I will say the first time you watch it, it's totally sad. Until the very ending, it is like as sad as it can possibly be because there's just this tension the entire time of they're never going to actually be together. And like you so badly want them to just finally be together because they're trying so hard to do it that by the time you finally get to the end of the movie, like there's even a moment where, we've said spoilers a million times. It doesn't matter. There's a moment where they literally pass by each other. Like they're racing to each other and then they're like, well, maybe I don't know you. And they just pass by each other and you're like, fuck, do something, please.
Yeah.
And like they both turn back and finally have that interaction and finally realize like, I felt you before.
That was a moment where I paused the movie and said out loud, how much longer could this possibly be?
And the answer was 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
I'm just imagining poor Gab pausing that movie and being like, fuck, is there going to be like a whole other thing?
I thought it was going to be like another 40 minutes. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Gab, this is when the second comet becomes a big deal.
Oh my God. Yeah, I understand.
I loved how they wrapped that up though, because I feel like if they did it where he did remember, it would have felt like a nice little like perfect happy wrapped ending, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as if they suffered for like 10 minutes longer. Is that sick?
I know, and I feel like this is the perfect way for this to end. Like I feel like it ends with us knowing like, okay, I can tell where this goes from here. They pulled the tension out exactly as long as they should have for me to like get to the point where I was dying for it to just be like, no, just connect. And once they did, you don't even need to hear them really talk to each other because it's like all that matters is that now they've contacted each other and now the rest of the story will proceed.
Well, and I like the idea that they are now going to live in a world where they feel like they know each other, but they don't know how. And that's really nice. But here's my question. How? Because isn't she 3 years in the past? I'm so confused.
Well, she survived. So she's just 3 years older than him, technically, I guess, if they were both the same like grade in high school. So she's just 3 years older than him.
I think I had seen somewhere that by the end of the movie, he's 20 and she's 23.
But so they got on the same, how did they get on the same timeline? Because when they were both alive, he was in 16 and she was in 13, right? 2016, 2013?
Yes.
So how did they get into the same year?
Well, the way time exists is, even though you may have existed 3 years ago, because you did not die in a comet, Gab, you also exist now.
But hold on, I'm going to put my microphone down so I can show you with my hands. Aren't they like, hold on, here.
She is with her fingers showing that they are parallel, but not exactly parallel. Like they're out of parallel with each other.
Like 3 years worth of out of parallel.
So the way and now I'm a little worried that I'm going to confuse myself. The way I thought about it is, let's say we had someone born in 1990 and then someone born in 93. We're still experiencing the same timeline. We were just born at different times. that's how I made sense in my head.
And don't forget that heavy-handed grandma speech about how time is twisting and turning and breaking and whatever. Who knows? They could be put back on the same timeline after the comet.
Well, they are on the same.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean,
let's not think about timelines.
No, let's
think
about
it.
Let's think about it. I want to think about it.
No, stop thinking. Quit your thinking. It's really just a difference of she was 3 years in the past, but once he finds a way to change the comet from happening, they have forgotten each other, and then 5 years passes for him, and 8 years passes for her, and they're in the exact same time. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So essentially what you're saying is the happenings, the events that we are privy to happen in 2016 for him and 2013 for her. But at the end of the day, in 2023 or whatever,
they are both in the same
events
year.
Happened.
Yes.
Right. They happened different amounts of time ago.
Yes.
But okay. All right. Okay. But we can see how I was sitting on my couch thinking, how the fuck did this happen?
No, I can understand how you can have too many thoughts, as Giselle is trying to. Yes,
we need to go back because now I'm confused. Hold on.
Okay. So let's say, Giselle, that you and I are. I don't want to say switching bodies. Let's say that you and I are. Let's say you find a stack of letters and I find a stack of letters.
Yes.
I know I'm going to confuse myself. and no, this isn't working. Okay. So let's say when for Taki, he had some girl living in his body every so often in the year 2016.
Yes.
Okay.
She had it happening to her in the year 2013.
Yes.
Okay.
So these events, while we see them happening at the same time, they're happening to it's happening to that individual in just a different year. So
okay.
I think you're worrying too much about time from a linear standpoint. For them, they are feeling it happen for them at the same time.
All right, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
But love isn't linear.
Love transcends time and space, as Interstellar once told me.
The other
Don't
day,
let me leave, Murph.
our bathroom mat got really fucked up, and I was like kind of annoyed because I was like, "We're gonna have to buy a new mat now." And Corey looked at me and said, "Mats are temporary, but this love is forever."
I would have been so annoyed. And so I'm like, and that does not fix the map.
I was literally just like, all right. Okay. All right. That's fine.
Don't
and
tell
the
your brother
bathroom
that Corey said mats are
up.
temporary. That seems very rude to me.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think he may have said bath mats, but either way, I mean, based on this movie, we could all go in a comet strike at any moment. So we're all temporary, really.
Yeah, I think the comet did it on purpose.
Has anybody I think comets coming to Earth are shooting stars. Has anybody ever seen one?
Meteorites.
Thank you. Gab, have you?
Oh.
I'd be much more likely to see the Joe Dirt version where it's just like, it turns out it's not a meteorite. It's just a giant piece of poop from an airplane.
That's amazing. I'm lying to you. I have seen shooting stars. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
We went to Montauk for my birthday last year and saw a ton of shooting stars.
Was it like a planned event, or is it like, was it a known like shooting star like night or something? Or
no, they were just little babies.
I want to go.
Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars?
Oh my God.
I could really use a wish right now.
Do you think
back when I was trying to get a tip at Subway, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like in another timeline, there are 4 dinosaurs having the same conversation. Have you guys ever seen like shooting stars, a comet? Like, what's that?
The little boys, pew pew.
Yeah. Oh shit, guys.
All right. Well, Dill, do you have any facts for us about this?
I have so many facts. So are we done with our opinions? Does everybody feel opinioned out?
Listen, I'm very hungry. So unless anybody has something really pressing to say or anything to teach me, I would love to get to the facts. Anyone? Z?
No, I'm good. I've said my piece.
I want the truth! Face the facts, dokes.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Now that I know how hungry Gab is, I'm going to drag these facts out. So let's get started with the ratings. IMDb gives this an 8.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes on the tomato meter gets 98%. Average rating of 8.2 out of 10, 114 fresh reviews and 2 rotten. The audience score is 94% with an average score of 4.6 out of 5. The movie had a budget of 370 million yen, which is $2.7 million. I thought it would be a lot more.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
The box office grossed $382 million worldwide, which made it the third highest grossing anime film ever.
What are the first two?
I was ready for this question.
Mm-hmm.
First is Demon Slayer Mugen Train, which grossed over $500 million. And second place is Spirited Away, which it actually beat at one point, but then with a re-release, it beat back Your Name Again. The movie was directed by Makoto Shinkai, who also directed Suzume, Weathering with You, and The Garden of Words. Written by Makoto Shinkai and Clark Chang. Chang also wrote the English dubs for The Seven Deadly Sins, Queen's Blade Rebellion, and Samurai Girl Real Bout High School. For the dub, it stars Michael Sinterniklaas as Taki Tachibana, there we go, who you may know as Dean Venture from the Venture Brothers, or as Leonardo in the 2003 version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And Stephanie Sheh as Mitsuha, who you may know from 199 episodes of Bleach as Origami. Oh god, I hope that's not a typo that my computer corrected into Origami and it was a different name. I will never know now. And from 153 episodes of Naruto as Hint Hyuga. But she had, it was tough to figure out because she had 624 acting credits on IMDb.
Wow. Nice.
And as a shout out to Corey, Kyle Hebert is Teshi, who you may know as the voice of Gohan and all the Dragon Ball stuff.
Wow, which one is Teshi? The friend?
Yes, Mitsuha's male friend.
The black guy? He looked like a black guy, right? Am I crazy?
You're the only person who had thought about that. I don't think any of the three of us had thought that.
Sorry, I just assumed. Anyway, cool. Gohan. I'll be sure to let him know.
Okay.
He'll listen to this.
At Behind the Voice Actor Awards, it won Best Vocal Ensemble for the dub and Best Actress dub for Stephanie Sheh as Mitsuha.
Wow.
And at the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, it won Best Film. Critics' consensus: as beautifully animated as it is emotionally satisfying, Your Name adds another outstanding chapter to writer-director Makoto Shinkai's filmography. Couple of reviews. Here's the two negative ones from Rotten Tomatoes. Matthew Bond from the Mail on Sunday: the vital second half feels ponderous and overblown, and the eventual explanation too complex for its own good. Gab's like, I feel seen.
Yeah, I really do.
Tom Kyo from the Seattle Times: as pleasing as some aspects of Your Name can be, there's no question Shinkai's overstuffed movie often trips over itself. Now let's get to some other reviews. Kristen Yoon-soo Kim from Brooklyn Magazine: beautifully animated. We're talking Studio Ghibli. It is Ghibli.
Ghibli.
Right? God damn it. I knew I was going to fuck that up. 50-50 shot.
Embarrassing.
Studio Ghibli standards here. Your Name captures that sensation of waking up from a dream you wish lasted longer, or misplacing a name that's still warm on your tongue but has just departed. Emily St. James from Vox: by the time Your Name reaches its final half hour or so, the film has moved so far beyond its initial premise that you'll think back to the beginning. You'll be astonished how far it's come. Brian Tallarico from RogerEbert.com: a beautiful, captivating piece of work that gets off to kind of a rocky start, but achieves remarkable momentum toward an emotional, powerful ending. Let me get to some fun facts. The red braided cord that Mitsuha wears represents the invisible red string of fate that is said to connect someone to their fated person according to Japanese tradition. Mitsuha's name means 3 leaves and follows a family trait. Her grandmother Hitoha is 1 leaf, her mother Futaba is 2 leaves, and her little sister Yatsuha is 4 leaves.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh, that's
Wow.
The restaurant where Taki works is called Il Giardino delle Parole, which is Italian for the Garden of Words, which was Makoto Shinkai's previous film. Director Makoto Shinkai said in November 2022 that if he tried to make this film in a post-Me Too world, one of the film's most memorable scenes would be judged as unacceptable by audiences today, he explained. I would have rejected the joke where Taki rubs Mitsuha's breasts every time he wakes up. It was sort of like a dream, and the scene was set up in such a way that there was no problem because it was her own body to begin with, but the audience today would have judged it as unacceptable. The dates and days of the weeks do not correspond for Taki and Mitsuha's scenes as they scroll through their phones. For example, September 12th is Wednesday in one, but not another, hinting early on that they are not in the same timelines. What else do I have here? In the long history of Japanese animation, only one film to date had ever won an Academy Award, with that being Spirited Away. People were surprised this was not nominated for the Best Animated Feature that year, with the movies being nominated Kubo and the Two Strings, Moana, The Red Turtle, My Life as a Zucchini, and Zootopia.
My Life as a Zucchini?
See, I got you all interested in another movie now, huh?
And now I know I hate animation.
Makoto Shinkai calls the movie overrated and says he does not want to be compared to Hayao Miyazaki, who is famous for the Studio Ghibli movies. And that is all the facts that I have.
Wow. Very cool. I felt like I had something to say about one of the facts, but I guess I do not.
Was it related to zucchini?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
But you know what I was thinking? How cute would it be to have a dog and name it Zucchini?
Zucchini feels like a little dog name.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be funny as a big dog? I also think it would be great to name a dog something like Frank.
Yeah, like one of those wiener dogs.
Yeah, Frank and Zucchini.
Okay, now I've come back around on it. If it's a wiener dog, like dachshunds, they're wiener dogs, right?
Yeah, that's what they are.
Yeah, a dachshund named Frank, I would like that.
Frank and Zucchini.
And you could bring him to the ballpark.
Aww. That's really
wow,
cute.
that's the best reaction I got in this entire podcast from episode
really
1 to
is.
now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's been Movie Smash Before You Die. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're out.
Another episode again.
Okay. And on that note, why don't we get away from our guests for a minute and talk about some mail?
Yeah. Fuck the guests. Let's do the mail.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
Seems a bit harsh towards the guests. That is okay. So why don't we start with Scott?
Our family members. Okay.
I was gonna say, I was like, we're pretty close to these guests, but let's start with Scotty, who is our guest commenting right now.
Yes.
So first, he came back with the Rotten Tomatoes information we needed because he is our Jamie.
He's the best.
Yes, the Rotten Tomatoes percentages are just the percentage of people who saw a movie and liked it. So it's counting how many fresh/good reviews a film gets, and it calculates a percentage. The average score effectively functions like the IMDb score or the Goodreads score, where it averages out every rating it gets, which would drive a human being crazy since the average score is on the 10 scale, yet so many of the reviews submitted to Rotten Tomatoes from critics are on the 5 scale, or just letter graded. I'm not entirely sure how the algorithm calculates that when generating an average score. It's a good thing users can only submit reviews on the 5 scale. I will say, since the subject of how one saves files came up, I use Google Drive to save important documents. I do have Microsoft OneDrive set up for image and video files saved so I can have them on any device that supports OneDrive. Too bad Ben Stiller was writing in the early 2000s and not the late 2010s with all these face technological advancements. Face technological advancements? Did he mean, I'm guessing it was save technological advancements and it got autocorrected.
Yes.
The funniest this is, I'm confused by your grammar again, Scotty. We need a proofread on this one. The funniest this is, I was listening to the Long Box Crusades podcast Action Film Face Off before this one, and they were doing Source Code versus Deja Vu. And the host made a throw mama from a train joke when describing Source Code's action. Then throw mama from a train came up in this podcast when discussing Danny DeVito as a director. Coincidence? I think not.
What is Throw Mama from a Train?
It was a movie directed by Danny DeVito.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. Okay.
No, I might be mixing this up with the movie Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Which is a real movie starring Sylvester Stallone. The fun fact there was, I believe Arnold Schwarzenegger tricked Stallone into taking it because they were competing for the same roles all the time, and Arnold Schwarzenegger knew that movie was going to be shit, and he pretended to be super interested in the movie so that Stallone would take it.
That's hilarious.
So is the story. Anyway, the hosts of Action Film Face Off, Jared and Jason Alberich, called the one action sequence in the film Blow Mama from a Train.
That's funny.
All about source code. One other comment from Scotty, and that's more akin to the movie we're talking about now, Your Name. I'm not much of an anime person either, though I do really enjoy the Boondocks. Is the Boondocks an anime?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person.
I guess it looks kind of similar, but I never thought of it as an anime. I think for me, it was stuff like Dragon Ball Z that turned me off because I just found annoying because of the excess shouting, so I never got into it.
So much shouting. I only noticed it after you pointed it out to me.
They have, quite frankly, I found out later that there was a show called Dragon Ball Z Kai. And I was like, this looks like the same show. What is this? And somebody told me, I can't remember who it was. It was one of my friends at the time, was like, no, they cut out all the filler. So this is a more abridged version. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, you know how there would be like 3 episodes where it was just like, he's just screaming and getting ready to fight? I'm like, there were? And I watched that. And they're like, yeah. And now they've just made it like a more highly edited version. And I was like, wow, remarkable. Apparently, I guess the way it works is they were coming out with the TV show faster than they were coming out with the manga that it was based on. So they were just like, we need to stall for time. So I guess Goku's going to spend an entire episode just being like, sounds like he's having an aneurysm and straight to take a shit at the same time. You know what I mean?
Honestly. By the way, did you know that Elvis died from constipation?
I have heard that.
Okay. Is that in the movie?
Is that in the movie Elvis? Do they show him dying from constipation?
Yeah.
No, they do not show him dying on the toilet.
How do they show him dying?
You know what? It's sad. I watched the movie a couple months ago and I've already totally forgotten.
Okay, that's fair. I from what I understand, that's kind of how people describe the movie. Like, I liked it while I was watching it, and now I don't remember anything that happened. But I did read that he had 30 pounds of feces in his intestines when he died. 30 pounds.
So
as
Elvis
Dr. Now would say, 30 pound.
Wait, who is that?
Dr. Now for My 600-Pound Life.
Oh, that means nothing to me, but okay.
You have to lose 30 pound. Corey does it better. Lose 30 pound in 1 month.
And what was I going to say? I just watched Men in Black recently because I was on a Harrison Ford kick, spoiler for a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
But in Men in Black, I never noticed before. I love the line that they say where they go, Elvis is dead. No, he just returned home.
Ha.
I liked it.
Yeah, okay. What does Harrison Ford have to do with Men in Black?
Damn it, not Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones. God damn it, Gab.
Oh, you're so embarrassing. For a minute, I was like,
that's even further spoiler
for part.
That's even further spoiler for a future episode because now it's Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones.
That's all right. Let people figure it out. Scotty, do your research. Okay, well, cool. Thanks, Scotty.
Okay, and now we have a piece of mail, one singular piece of mail. Pedro, you are missing in action. I hope you're all right out there.
Yeah.
I hope you haven't fallen into a tsunami of tests or whatever happens. I don't know.
Can I guess who this mail is from?
You can try.
First guess, Vitz.
No. Do I
Second
give you multiple
guess?
guesses? This is just a waste of time. Go ahead.
All right. Second guess, Scott and Durante.
No.
All right. I have no more guesses. My Fat Face?
No. Stop guessing. You're doing a terrible job of it.
Okay, who is it?
It's Keen Machine.
Oh, that was my next guess.
Subject, mail for your name here. Greetings to the lovely guest Giselle and also the host of this podcast. Although I tried, I ultimately failed to watch your name in time to submit my thoughts this week. However, maybe by the time this is aired, I'll have seen it. If I watch it before next week, I'll be sure to write in with my reactions. Nevertheless, I refuse to let another week go by without making my voice heard, with Dylan as my instrument. I've been enjoying these past few episodes and love that this week we have a very special guest with us. Giselle, you're incredible. No,
wait a second.
Better. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I do not disagree with him in the least, and I hate that I interrupted him in this moment. But my brain cannot comprehend what is happening because at this point, the episode for your name has not been released. So the mail that we're getting.
Name.
Yeah, but Keen is writing as if he's already heard the episode. I'm so confused.
I may or may not have told him we were doing the episode Your Name. Wait, no, we said at the end of Duplex that we were doing Your Name.
Yeah, but he hasn't heard the episode. That's what I'm saying. Like, how is he talking about the episode?
He didn't say anything specific about the episode. He just knows Giselle is in it and she's great.
Yeah, but he's saying I didn't get to watch the movie before this episode came out. The episode hasn't come out yet. There's still time.
Well, what? God damn it, Gab. Let me
Are
go
we?
back.
What vortex am I in?
Maybe by the time this is aired, I'll have seen it.
Oh,
you missed a crucial line.
Here, I'm trying to wrap my head around because normally the mail would be about Duplex, about the episode that's already come out. So he's talking about an episode that hasn't come out yet, and I feel high.
Keen's ahead of the game.
Okay, keep going. Sorry, Keen and Giselle. I double everything he says.
I've been enjoying these past few episodes and love that this week we have a very special guest with us. Giselle, you're incredible. No, even better, you are Keen. Duplex sounds like a fun film, if not a bit simplistic. It seems like one of those films I wouldn't watch of my own choosing, but if someone picked it, I'd end up enjoying it. I will say, Duplex is super simplistic until you get to the end where they're like, it's like, who's that guy, Salt Bay?
Yeah.
They just sprinkle on a little spice at the end there. Loving the recent mail segments being chock full of random trivial info. I've learned so much from Scotty, Pedro, etc. You learned about the history of homies, grading on a curve, so much random bullshit.
We do nothing if not educate.
Congrats on your first anime review. Unless we're counting recesses in anime, I certainly am not.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing the final verdicts. Until next week, keep it keen.
Keen, thank you for confusing the absolute shit out of me.
I could just see her, and she was like doing as close as she can do to that scream face she makes where her just jaw is agape.
I was like trying to think, like, did I miss an episode or because I thought this was about Duplex and now we're talking about, got it. All right.
The confusion was quite evident, but let us not waste Keen's wonderful transition that he put at the end there. And shall we get to our verdicts for Your Name?
Yeah.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence
is death.
Giselle, since you are the one who recommended the movie, we're going to start with you. Do you think that Your Name is a movie to watch before you die?
I do. I just think it's a really good love story. I think I'm not huge into romance films at all. And this is one of the few that I can tolerate and it just feels very genuine. And I just walk away feeling very relieved. And I'm glad that in my head, they are together, they have children and they're happy. And he's an architect and she's doing what she's doing. I don't know what she's doing, but they just have a happy ending. And that feels very satisfying. So yes, a movie to watch before you die.
And we know if they have a daughter that kid's name is 5 Leaves in Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay, Z or Gab, does one of you guys want to give your verdict next?
Z, you can go.
I mean, absolutely. You need to watch it. It's beautiful. The story gives you the ooey gooey. It just makes me happy. It's one of those. It's feel good for me. I know it's off to a rough start with like all the sad stuff, but it leaves you feeling good. Okay, Gab.
Dylan, why don't you go?
You know what? It's rare that a movie gives me the ooey gooeys, and I do feel like this movie gives even me the ooey gooeys. I find myself really feeling the romance. I find myself feeling the tears at the end of this movie, and I definitely think it's a movie to watch before you die. I definitely think it's one that it gives you more nuggets to notice on rewatch. I think it is one of the best animes I've ever seen, if not the very best. Now it's on you, Gab. What is your verdict?
Well, I have said this to you before in many episodes.
Pressure.
Sometimes I come in with an opinion and then you start saying things to me and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't feel the way that I thought I felt. Maybe it is good. But here's the thing about this one. I still feel the exact same. And I definitely feel like I understand it more now, but I really do think that I just don't like animated films, because I think if you said to me, there's a live action remake of this movie.
There is a live action.
What? What is it?
I think it's the same name, but I think
they're making it.
Are they making it or is it out? There is a live action though.
I don't think it's come out.
I would really like to see how my opinion changes in that. Hearing your explanations, I definitely think if I were to rewatch it, it would make a lot more sense. And I've got to tell you, it's not off the table. Like, I genuinely mean, if I were ever having like a sad day or like I needed, like sometimes I'll watch like When Harry Met Sally to like produce some tears, like because it's very cathartic, or to feel something, even like happy tears. I don't necessarily always go for like sad movies in that instance, but I think I would put this on and give it another shot. But that being said, when we came up with this podcast, we decided we were going to make a list of movies that wouldn't be on the Rolling Stone 100 list of movies that you needed to see. And I don't think this belongs on that list for 2 reasons. The lesser reason is that I think it is just a little overcomplicated. I think there are some storylines, and maybe that's just me being like a dumb American or just a dumb person, and I'm willing to accept that. But the second reason is it sounds like this is a tremendous, groundbreaking, earth-shattering box office smash if you're into this kind of thing. So therefore, I feel like it doesn't belong on our list anyway.
I think that's a bit of a cop-out. Like,
I know, that was a stretch.
But I appreciate you sticking to your guns because I was like, she's not going to... to be honest, I was about to rag on you either way, whether you said it was or wasn't. But you know what? I respect that you stuck to your guns on it because the rest of the room is very much against you here.
Yeah, and that's okay. I just really think, like, personally, I understand it better now. I would give it another shot, but it didn't do it for me. And at the end of the day, there have been so many movies that Dylan has been like, oh, yeah, you know, I get it, but it just didn't do it for me. And so I have to stick to my guns. And like I said, I really just hope that you guys still love me and we can like we can get through this. I'm not worried about you. You're the least of my fucking problems.
I was shaking my head. He's like, you can't see that.
It's over.
All right. So unfortunately, as the two hosts, we didn't agree. We're not going to be able to add it to our little list at the bottom, but 3 out of 4 of us think that it's a movie to watch before you die. So we definitely want to hear from you if you watch it. But before we continue telling you about how you can hear from us, we got some guests who we're going to have say where they can be found. Giselle, besides on the couch outside in the living room, where can you be found?
Okay, so I could be found in New York, in the United States.
Yes.
On planet Earth.
True.
In the Milky Way galaxy.
And she'll probably be back on here at some time.
Pacific. Yeah.
Z, do you want to give us? I'm sure you will be more specific than Giselle just was about where we can find you.
Very specific.
She was very specific.
Too specific. Well, I'm worried that people are going to come to our apartment now.
You can find me on Twitter. I mostly post Pokemon content if that's your thing, and other random gaming things. And I'm also on Twitch occasionally.
So we will have all the links to find Z below in the description.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
It was a lot of fun.
First, we thank the people for coming on, okay?
I'm too close to them. I don't need to thank them. It's fine.
You, please, if you've ever seen this movie, if you've ever heard of this movie, please let us know what you think about it. I'm desperate to hear other people's opinions. I can't stress this enough, like, watch it, because I really want to hear people's genuine thoughts, not their hypothetical thoughts, because this conversation changed everything. But what did you get when you watched the film? That's what I want to know. Send us all that information. You can comment on our YouTube. You can, I guess that's the only place they can leave comments. You can send a voice note to anchor.fm/movies to watch. And of course, email us at movies-to-watch-before-you-die@gmail.com.
Yeah, subscribe and do all the things. And thanks for listening. And thanks for coming on the podcast, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. And thank you for coming on.
Excuse me. Have I met you somewhere?
I thought so too.
Can I ask you your name?